Okay, we've already given somewhat of a preview to virtual reality, and our next panel is going to be talking about VR innovations. And this panel is going to be moderated by Everardo Gomez from East West Bank. And Everardo, why don't you come up here and introduce your panelists? We have a really amazing group of speakers for this next session. And I have to say that during our preparation call for getting ready for this panel, it went on and on and on. So I know there's so much content to share here. And I would like to turn the stage over to Everardo. Thank you.
Should we have him come up
Yeah,
here?
why don't you come on up? Andy Stack from River Studios. David Levitt from Pantomime. Adam Arrigo from Wave. Emma Chen from Ximmerse, and Ryan Wang from Outpost Capital. Okay, here they are, and Everardo, it's over to you.
Thank you. Hi, good morning. So I'll do a quick intro on everybody because we only have 35 minutes. I'll make it short. Here first is Andy Stack. He's the Executive Director of River Studios, a story-driven content studio creating transformational VR and AR experiences. Andy was also the head of creator technologies at YouTube Spaces, where he led YouTube's first initiative into the VR 360 video content strategy. Next is Emma Chen, and she's the marketing director at Ximmerse. Ximmerse is a Chinese hardware and research company focused on highly accurate and cost-effective mobile VR input systems. Next is Dr. David Levitt. He's the CEO and president of Pantomime, and they are the creators of an interactive VR/AR platform that allows multiple devices to share a VR/AR experience. He's also a serial entrepreneur. He was the CEO, co-founder of Connect Media and Hip Software, and he's also a lecturer and a bunch of other stuff, but I'm going to cut it a little short. Adam Arrigo is the CEO of Wave VR. Wave VR is a VC-backed startup in Austin, Texas, building a VR music platform. He has over 10 years working experience in music and tech products, including that he worked on the Music App of the Year for 2015 Diddy. And then last but not least, we have Ryan Wang of Outpost Capital, a VR-focused fund with a heavy China presence. Currently, they've made at least 4 investments from that fund and looking to do more. So welcome. And I want to open it up with VR, AR. So where are we today? You know, how many people really have access to experiences? And I know now with Pokemon, maybe that's a lot more than we thought, but you know, anybody wants to take it away on kind of where we are in that, you know, in the lifestyle of VR?
I'll grab the mic, maybe partly because I was on the team that invented virtual reality at VPL Research years ago. It's such an exciting time. 2 years ago, of course, Facebook changed the landscape of VR by investing heavily in headset-based VR. This past quarter, people have actually finally experienced it, and it can be fantastic. The HTC Vive with the ability to reach in, so exciting. But people also realized that it's inconvenient, it's uncomfortable, it's typically tethered in those advanced systems, and it's actually not very consumer friendly, and developers worried about slow growth and such. Pantomime and Pokemon Go are a part of this new wave, where you realize the headsets are optional, and it's not 100,000 or a million people, it's 1 billion people who can participate in consumer VR, and AR particularly. People thought AR would require things more complicated than VR glasses. It's actually less. So it couldn't be a more exciting time where something that seemed like an elitist, narrow market is actually a huge mass consumer market.
Yeah, I would also agree and add to that one of the enabling factors over the last 2 years is that the processing and display power of these devices and the ubiquity of them finally caught up, and then with Google's presence and persistence with cardboard really helped raise the next level of market awareness around this. And so yes, we've got there's, I think, lots of exciting areas to go, but we're seeing experiments in AR. We're seeing a lot of experiments with 360, and you're starting to see more and more content released for completely immersive environments like the Vive and the Oculus. River Studios is a content studio, so we're focused on actually creating the content using advanced technologies to help move along this industry. So we're pretty excited from the storytelling possibilities. Not to mention, there's many other technology exciting possibilities coming.
Since I come from the world all about interactions, so question: how many of you guys already tried the VR headsets? Okay, pretty cool. So, think about the first time when you try the VR headsets. You always think about the moments do you reach out your hands and trying to find where's your hands. So this is what we comes for. So maybe you have tried HTC Vive or Oculus. They already developed very great as input and output, and they have position tracking, and you can walk around. But those are all tethered, as he just mentioned. But when we look at the Gear VR or the cardboard, as Jerry mentioned about the Viewmaster, so the only kind of interaction is maybe you have the touchpad on the side where you can just by click. You don't have your hands reach out to interact with things. So that's what we do with, we enable your hands in the virtual reality. So what we are now, this year, April, when Oculus, they released a number of the Gear VR when it reached 1 million users. There's also another number showing that there are 80% of those users, they only watching videos. But while we look at those videos, 360 videos in VR, do you really think those are really high quality? But actually, those are really limited to those the screen, the display, and then the hardware to capture those videos. So the thing is, because there's a lacking of those interactions, so it is kind of the main factor we think we can push the VR market into a broader way to enable everyone to get immersed in VR. So we think it's still kind of very early, and we're pushing the walls to have everybody to have very immersive, untethered, mobile VR input.
And one more thing I want to add is on top of what Andy, Emma, and David has mentioned, it is very important to understand, in order to understand where we are in terms of virtual reality and augmented reality at this point, it is very important to understand a timing point where VR and AR is going to hit the mass consumer market, right? And obviously at this point, for virtual reality, we know that we have those high-end headsets like the Oculus, the Vive, and on the low end, we have the Gear VR and the cardboard. And same thing for augmented reality. So for augmented reality on the high end, we have HoloLens, Magic Leap, and all these smart glass-based headsets and smart glasses. And on the low end, there are smartphone and tablets-based augmented reality experiences and applications, such as all those applications that's enabled by Vivorius. But no matter on the high end and on the low end, in terms of the timing point to hit the mass consumer market, I think there are two very important criteria that need to be met in order to hit the mass consumer market. And the number one is right now, for the mass consumer adoption, it definitely need to rely on mobile platforms, such as meaning the lower end of the VR and AR platforms, because it's simply more adaptable to everyone, and it's much cheaper for people to pick up these devices. And second thing is, there got to be a killer content or killer use case, no matter for virtual reality or for augmented reality, so that people will not only picking it up, but also come back to it day after day. Pokemon is a great example in this case. It's mobile, everybody can use it. It's kind of like augmented reality. People are debating whether it's true augmented reality or not. But regardless, we know that by the success of Pokemon Go, it helps a lot in terms of the mass consumer adoption of virtual reality and augmented reality. And in order to hit this critical mass, I think number one, it's gonna be on the mobile market, on the mobile platform, and number two, it's gonna be starting with some killer content and use cases.
Hey, Adam, why don't you talk a little bit about a specific use case, Wave VR, what are you guys doing, and kind of one example of that?
Sure. So I'll be the design guy on the panel. And kind of piggybacking on what Ryan was saying, I think VR in general, it's still really in its early stages of us as content creators and designers understanding what types of experiences work well in VR. I think I've been exposed to just every VR experience at this point. And I think we're still kind of in the exploratory stages of design. I think VR, unlike any other medium, adheres to a different set of design principles of what works when you're immersed in an environment and have a sense of real presence. A lot of business models and companies attempt to shoehorn things that worked well on mobile or in web into VR, right? The YouTube of VR, et cetera, et cetera. But in virtual reality, I think the things that, as Reiner was saying, are going to bring users back and get them over the friction of putting a thing on their face and being immersed in a different world, potentially in the presence of other people, need to have a value proposition that's extremely high. So, how many of you guys have tried Tilt Brush for the HTC Vive? Only one, two?
Wow.
Oh my God, you guys have to try it. Oh, okay, we got 4. So Tilt Brush is a 3D painting app. It's, in my opinion, like if you had to define a killer app for VR, I think a lot of people would point to Tilt Brush because it allows you to do something you just can't do in reality. The Vive is a room scale VR experience. It allows you to actually physically walk around and positionally track space. And so Tilt Brush allows you to create art in 3D and actually physically walk around it and then share it with others. So in reality, you can't just take out a pen and start drawing things, right? But in Tilt Brush, now it's empowering a whole group of new artists to explore the medium. So for what my company is doing is, I guess, similar to Tilt Brush in that it's music-based. It allows users to host virtual reality concerts in this sort of like synesthetic, audio-reactive, dreamlike environment. So we're focused on DJs right now. DJs can go in, import their tracks, create the venue, which can be as literal as a nightclub or as surreal as outer space, and actually control the whole world as they play their music. And then other users can be networked in to the virtual venue and experience it live from anywhere in the world. So, our thesis on what works well in VR kind of comes down to 3 things. We think that things that allow you to create stuff are sticky. Anything that allows you to put a piece of yourself into the world and actually see yourself reflected in it is going to bring users back. 2, social. The ability to connect people from different areas to interact in real time is something, and actually feel their presence near you is something you cannot do on any other platform. And then 3, as I said, just something that is surreal and dreamlike and as different from reality as possible.
Yeah, Tilt Brush is great. We should make that like a required experience for future events like this, that have like something in the back corner to at least allow people to step into that. It's a transformational experience. It's great. Good example.
So, and you guys touched a little bit, but so what's next? I mean, headsets are being shipped, people are starting to use a couple of things. What's next? When do we all start adopting VR? Or is it going to be just entertainment? Or are we going to do other things in VR? I mean, are we going to run our lives or run our meetings? Or what else are we going to be doing in VR? Anybody?
Sure. I can jump on that first. One unique advantage that we have with River Studios is that we're connected with Rothenberg Ventures. And Rothenberg Ventures is a venture fund that invests in frontier technology, and they've made one of the most, or the largest number of investments. They've made over 30 or even over 40 investments in the VR space. So since we're connected with them, we have access to see what are some of these emerging technologies or enabling bits that are coming from that. And so while my focus has been on creating story and around the content, speaking to the second point of what Ryan mentioned, you have to have compelling content to really drive adoption here. We're looking at enabling tools that are really interesting. So right now you see a lot of 360. What you have coming is more broader adoption with some interactive VR with PlayStation VR launching later this year. Google Daydream is going to level up the experience of what the next the Gear VR headset does. Basically, Google Daydream takes the cardboard. It's like cardboard plus that with an intuitive interactive bit. So you'll start to see more work going there. But what I get really excited about on the content side is when you start merging the interactive, like game engine driven stuff with real life or live action capture. Some call it mixed reality, but there's two technologies that I think open up amazing new possibilities for storytelling. One is volumetric capture. And what that allows for, there's a company called Uncorporeal and 8i. These are companies that have a technology that have many cameras on the outside shooting in. So you can have an actor moving around in real time, and they're captured from all angles. And that's captured. It could be skinned or reskinned, but that can be placed in an interactive environment that's driven by a game engine. There's so many possibilities and exciting things that can happen from that. And the other one is photogrammetry, which is, and there's some great companies working on solutions here, and that's just, that's being able to process thousands, if not millions, of flat 2D pictures and constructing 3D-dimensional environments in which you can have an interactive environment and experience. So I think those are the two areas that I get super excited about. Yes, there's AR. Yes, there's 360. But I think over time we're going to see some really exciting bits of interactivity enabled by those two technologies.
So I think virtual reality is still super new to us, although it was invented around the 60s. Think about what I look at this VR industry is through the hardware and the content and then distribution. So we're still at the stage, I think, is at the hardware side until we really get the distribution as a hardware as much as like today, everyone has the mobile phones. So Andy. And you already mentioned about the content side. So I want to talk about the hardware side. So till now, the numbers about the selling of the HTC Vive is about 100K shipments. And the Oculus is about 30K shipments, 300K shipments. And let's say about for the PlayStation VR, it hasn't shipped yet, but the estimation is about 500,000. So think about add these three high-end together, those are like less than 1 million. And Gear VR, like people are saying the number of users is about 1 million. So still we're at the first year of those early stage of the virtual reality. And so where we are with those interactions then. So we categorize those interactions into like the interaction like above your neck and interaction of your hands and your full body tracking. So above your neck, like the ultimate goal of the virtual reality is you want to replicate everything in the real world into virtual reality. So you want to track your eye tracking. You want to track what your expression is, like when you are talking, what is the muscles of your face. And you want to check the position of tracking with your head. So those are the things still like remaining solving. And then the second tier would be the hand movement, and you want to interact with world. You want to cooking, you want to dancing, you want to like hugging with someone. So those are all need some kind of like tracking system to simulate what you are doing in the real world. And then the ultimate one is you can walk around in the VR, like the HTC Vive do, but HTC Vive still, they need a high-end computer. The whole cost is about around $2,000, and then it's tethered, it's very hard to move around. So with all this together, we are still, at the very early stage with those even tracking and hardware and the cost of all this hardware. So yeah, pretty much with the numbers for you guys for reference.
I think we're right at the knee of a curve where the virtual reality that Emma was just describing is really about hardware in a way. It's about this special thing covering your face. And I think what we're really glimpsing now, Pantomime has been talking about it since our founding, but Pokemon Go has really made it public, that this is much more about ubiquitous computing. It's about, the future of VR is now a novelty where you go into a special space and you might have to wait in line and no one can see what you're seeing. And what we're realizing is the future of VR is about integrating it with ubiquitous computing. It's paradoxical that in a Gear VR, the thing that you usually like to have in your hand in the real world is unusable because it's attached to your face. The opposite is going to be the dominant experience of virtual worlds, and only a small number of people will necessarily want to put on a headset with the issues of cost and comfort if they can reach into shared virtual worlds with the devices they have. In pantomime worlds, you see your hands, and you actually see them holding the device that's in your hands. You see the mobile device that's in them. That's part of our core technology. Similarly, we may be the only company that shows your PC or Mac sitting there on the desk, on the desk near you, and other people can see into it. And it's hard to describe. You can see some video on our site, but if you want to double your field of view, you set your laptop down next to the other computer that's there, and you're seeing more into that virtual world. And you're seeing your hands and you're seeing everything else, and the people, instead of being shut out and saying, oh, well, I'll wait in line for the novelty experience that he's having, they're already involved and they're reaching in, and they may say, oh, I wish I had stereo too, and get the ViewMaster version of it, but that's all optional. It's almost like an in-app purchase model where VR virtual worlds are great, but if I really want a stereo headset, that's an upgrade that I may or may not decide to use. It's already a part of our lifestyle to have ubiquitous computing, or it will be. Right now, VR from a month ago is completely separate from ubiquitous computing, and I think the biggest shift is going to be that they'll be the same, and wide-angle stereo headsets will just be a part of the mix.
So the first big use case for VR is obviously video games. And I think so in the first year, I agree with Emma was saying, so I think PlayStation VR is going to be the winner. The other attach rate is 500,000 to 1 million. That's what's being predicted. Games are big or will be big for a couple of reasons. One, the experiences that will be sticky and make money are things that are going to be interactive. I'm going to have a loop, like a video game. You level up, you come back to it. There's a reason to keep playing. And a lot of the VR experiences now, some games included, just feel kind of like 5-minute demos or novelty, right? Like VR is extremely cool. It's kind of the new hotness. You put it on someone for the first 5 minutes, they're blown away, but then the real challenge is re-engagement. And I think games have that built in, and people have a mental model for why they would keep playing. And then the second reason is to experience those high-quality products that are interactive. Gamers already have all the hardware. Like they have PlayStation 4s, they have gamer PCs. A Vive rig, the high-end version of VR, which I think a lot of people would argue is sort of the base level for having a good VR experience, is extremely expensive. It costs at least $1,000 to buy the gaming PC that can run it, and then the Vive itself is $800. So in terms of the install base, gamers, hardcore gamers especially, already have these devices. So I think the way it'll play out is a lot of people are experimenting, myself included, with non-game or games parallel use cases And while we explore the gaming sector, people will figure out what works and what doesn't in VR. Because again, it's still so new. The games you play, everyone's kind of figuring it out for the first time as we go. Like, if you remember when mobile came out, a lot of the games were not good, right? They had these virtual directional pads on the touchscreen that emulated a game controller. Before you had Angry Birds, which kind of just used really simple swipe gestures and basic physics. No one really knew how to design a good game for the touchpad. So I think it's going to take us at least the first year of experimentation to figure out what works.
And in addition to what's previously discussed, one very important comment I want to make is that I think right now there's a huge challenge in this industry, which is a kind of chicken egg problem between content creators and the installation base. So right now, for virtual reality industry, for the content creators, they are more leaning, they are more kind of tentative at this stage, and they want to make sure that their content are able to be consumed by not thousands, but millions or billions of consumers when they have released their content. But on the consumer side, they want to wait until the point that when they buy the Rift, when they buy the Vive, when they buy a VR headset, they have enough high quality contents to consume before they make the purchase. So it's like content creators are locking the user adoption, and the user adoption is falling behind the content creation. So I think at this stage, content is really the key to solve this chicken egg problem. And that's why, for us at Outpost, we invested in a number of VR content companies. We are very proud to be one of the investors for Adam's company, The Wave. We don't know what kind of VR content is going to be the hate type of content, but we know that when people are seeing the Wave video, nothing really stand up. But once they put on the headset and try the Wave demo, they are simply blown away, and people are just love it. So I think the Wave have great potential to be kind of like the tilt brush for music in virtual reality, and has a great potential to eventually evolve into a VR social platform that's targeted for music lovers, people who's passionate about music, art, and different type of EDM experiences in virtual reality. And we also invested in Kite and Lightning, which just did a press release yesterday, raised 2.5 million, and they are building a VR video game, kind of like the first esports VR game. And so the idea is player versus player. It's like a few evil babies fighting each other kind of games. So for that game, it's not only interesting to play, but it's also very interesting to watch as well. So it can bring in a huge number of audience that's from the hardcore gamers who's actually gonna go out there and play the game, to the light core type of gamers who just need to have a Gear VR or a cardboard to watch the game, to watch other people play. And the other thing, in addition to content, the other thing that's very important is the development of new technologies or enabling technologies, as Andy has previously mentioned. So volumetric video is one of these technologies. It's super important because at this point, for 360 video, you can't have 6 degrees of freedom while you are watching the 360 video, meaning you are not able to have the freedom to move around the video when you are watching that 360 video. So volumetric video enables the capability to do 60 degrees of freedom in a virtual reality video experience, which take the experience and take the quality of the experience to the next level. So I think, this kind of enabling technologies will also help a lot in terms of where we are, from where we are with virtual reality as a technology platform today to what it look like 5 years or 10 years later. So that's
Thanks.
right.
And to wrap it up, and I'll go back to you, what's the funding environment for VR, AR? I mean, we've seen huge numbers, Oculus, 2 billion, right? Magic Leap has raised, I don't know, $1 billion plus. But for true startups or companies that are going maybe A to B to C rounds, what's the environment out there? I mean, is it still growing? Are more VCs getting involved? Are less VCs getting involved? Are there more specialty VCs coming up? Like, what have you seen on that side?
Right. I think, it's definitely growing, right? Although there are a lot of debating on whether virtual reality is going to take off or not, or how long it's going to take for virtual reality to eventually take off. But definitely the buzz around virtual reality and the interest from the investment world about virtual reality is growing a lot these days. I would say that if we switch to a year ago, there are not too many VR investors back then. And back then, VR is not a investment category. It's not an investment sector back then. But right now, more and more investors are starting to putting VR labels to themselves, and they start to say, hey, I'm a VR investor as well, and I actively look into VR, right? So I think definitely there are more and more interest from the investment world, and we can see that from the market. There are more and more there are more and more deals that's coming up every day. That's in VR, AR, and frontier technology in general. In terms of the funding environment for entrepreneurs, I would say that it's definitely a really good time for entrepreneurs to start a VR startup and to raise money, because there are strong interest from the investor side. But if we take a look at the deal flow, actually there are not too many quality deals at this point. So for good deals, we can see that most of the time the valuation for these deals are going skyrockets, right? So sometimes we feel like, hey, for certain deals it's super expensive, and it's like twice the valuation, twice of a rational valuation. But still, there are a lot of investors are coming in and fighting for allocations of that kind of deals. So I think it's a great time for entrepreneurs to start VR company. And the other thing I want to mention is that I think what's unique about this VR AR revolution compared to what we see in the past for the revolution of PC, the revolution of internet, the revolution of mobile, one of the biggest difference is that China has been playing a critical role in this industry and in terms of the mass consumer adoption of virtual reality and augmented reality. So one of my theory is that for any kind of new technologies to be adopted by the mainstream, there are three primary drivers. So first of all, it's capital, right? How much money can be invested in this sector. And secondly, is a technology. Where we are with the technology, what's the development progress of the technology, and is the technology mature enough to be able to support this whole platform or this whole ecosystem. And the third thing is the market, right? So the market meaning whether the consumers are willing to pay for such a product, right? So if we look at these three primary drivers for virtual reality, actually China is leading on two of them. So China is leading in terms of capital. So as most of us know, that the liquidity on the primary market in the U.S. is shrinking these days. That's why we see the valuation for startups have been shrinking a little bit for the past 6 months. And in China, it's just booming, and the valuation kind of goes skyrockets for a lot of startups. And there are definitely a lot of liquidity that's floating on the primary market in the Chinese market than the U.S. And China is also leading on the market side. So we know that we have a huge installation base of mobile that's sitting in China, and they have the biggest rising of the middle class that's in China. So I think.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I'd love to add briefly, and just add a little bit of cautious optimism. I love the excitement, and I love the fact that you brought up China. But for those from the entrepreneurial side in the U.S., it's going to be rough going for at least in my point of view for the next few months. If you're looking to raise, it's great that there's a lot of interest in VR, and VR can kind of be insulated a little bit more than the regular startup environment, but you've got a lot of macro things working against you right now. First of all, timing right now, it's the end of July. If you're looking to raise money, August, not gonna happen. Then we're moving into September, but then you're moving into October, which is traditionally not a great market month, especially after a good bull run. Plus you've got the election coming in and a lot of tightening up. There's a lot of uncertainty about what's going to happen there. So from the entrepreneurial standpoint, I think you got to be either really, really, really good at just raising a lot of money, or really, really, really good at executing on the product right now when looking at the VR. And look for China for, I think, opportunities. That's a great way to look outside of it. But I think Pokemon Go, as a parting shot, what Pokemon Go showed is that it's a fantastic execution on the product, but really what's driving that? It's not a technology. It's not a particular, there's nothing new or novel about the technology of this. When I ask people what makes you addicted to Pokemon Go, and myself, I'm addicted. I'm level 12 now. I'm trying to keep up ahead of my kids. I'm not the last in the family. I'm second to last right now, but still at level 12. But you ask the people why they use Pokemon Go, the resounding answer that comes back is that they say, you know what? I feel like I'm 10 years old again. Like that, it's the story, it's the execution around the story and the content that's really driving that. So think about, I mean, that's execution on the product. So think about how that, so keep that in mind, because I think that's really inspiring.
Sorry,
We're out of time.
let me
Sorry.
add one more point, I think, which is also important in terms of investment. So I think it's also a great time to invest yourself, because the whole industry is really lacking of a lot of talents. And right now, according to those data, it's like 53% of all the VR talents, they are in US. And since we know, as Ryan mentioned, the big market is also in China too. So I think it's a really great time to invest yourself to be professional in this whole industry.
So briefly, we're in a unique position. We have Chinese investment from Wave VC Incubator, very enthusiastic because there's such great opportunity for things like 3D teleconferencing and such. But we also have a business model. We didn't get to business model questions, but that really solves this problem because even if there's only 1 million VR headsets playing our new Pantomime Creatures app coming out later in the summer, there will be up to 1 billion PCs that can run it too. And so if that's a $1.99 product, our business model is completely different and much more sustainable and rapid in growth potentially than one that's exclusively aimed at VR headsets.
Oh, and
of course, mobile devices at a similar low prices.
yeah, and I think it's the perfect time to be a VR entrepreneur. I mean, for us, I feel like the timing was perfect because it's early enough that you can really get a lot of experience and be an expert in the field, and it's sort of a land grab right now for attention. But it's not. But VCs are still really interested in investing you and just psyched about VR in general. So I think actually in the next 6 months, it's going to get a lot more competitive and a lot harder to raise capital because from the investors that I spoke to during the fundraising process, they hear about 10 new VR startups a day. So I would move now and not
Well,
wait.
we're out of time, but thank you very much. It was awesome.
Yeah, good to
I
see you
have a
again.
follow-up question. I have a follow-up question.
Great minds think alike.
Is VR for grown-ups at all? Is VR for grown-ups?
Absolutely. I think it's for all ages. In fact, I think the main power of VR is that it has the power for you to experience other people's dreams. Right? People talk about empathy, people talk about, and people talk about connection, right? That can happen at any age, at any level. So
Okay.
I think absolutely.
Okay. David, you wanted to add something?
Yes, it's for everyone, and people who are too young to officially be allowed to wear a headset can, love playing for hours in our system. The 5 and 10 minute experience that are usually associated with VR aren't a problem the way we approach it.
Okay.
A quote from Elon Musk saying, in the future, 99% of the possibility that we will live in a virtual world.
All right. So we're all going to be in a dreamlike state with these headsets on, right? Okay, thank you very much. VR panelists.
Hey, thanks for inviting me, man. This is super fun.